Oh, you're good. Don't worry. Another person that was supposed to be on was, well, I had invited Barry Littleton and I had also invited Jessica Jones from Cryptid, but it is what it is, and here we are. So we're gonna start. Thank you for being on. Can you see here? If you can.
Yeah.
This is
Sure.
this is
Well,
where are you? I don't see you. Can you go in a little bit closer? Oh, there you are.
there.
Okay. So he's gonna tell a story about the
Okay, well,
yeah, go ahead.
first, let me tell something I forgot last time of one of my, you could call it a Sasquatch experience in Western Colorado. In 2011, I was on vacation by myself, and I'm driving along the main highway there, and I realized that, oh, I'm going to be dropping out of the mountains in like 5 minutes. And I had wanted to take a short walk in the woods before that. So I start looking for, a place. And after about 3 minutes, I don't see a good place, but I figure, oh, this is my last chance before I drop out of the mountains. So I pull over, and it's got like a stone wall that runs near the highway, and a place to walk through the stone wall, and then there's a trail that goes on the other side of the stone wall, and then down a hill, and then 50, 100 yards of open space, and then there's the woods, little woods right there. So I figured I would walk down there. So I go ahead and I walk down there, and when I get to the woods, then I'm like having this mild feeling of like, well, maybe I don't want to go in the woods, And so I start kind of like making up excuse in my mind to not go in the woods, like, oh, my van's up on the hill next to the highway, hundreds of yards away, and it's unlocked and open, and anybody could pull over and stop and steal something and drive away, and I'd never be able to stop them. So I decided, well, I won't go into the woods. I'll just stay here for a minute. And so then about 2 minutes later, whatever, I start walking back up this hill, but I realize, oh, I'm overweight and out of shape and all that, so I'm going to have to take it real slow going up the hill. And so going up this hill, I realized that the ground is the site that has lots of rocks sticking up out of the ground. Not far, but I learned in the past that it only takes like a third of an inch of a rock sticking up out of the ground to catch the front of my sole of my shoe and make me stumble and trip and fall. And I was very concerned about not falling, which I have been for decades now. So I try not to fall. So I'm like intently just looking at the ground every step I'm making to make sure that I don't accidentally trip on a rock sticking up and fall. So I get about, I would say 80% of the way up this hill, and I'm almost done with the slanted part. And then I become very, very aware of how hyper vigilantly and how ultra hyper intensely that I'm doing this, looking at every step I'm taking to make sure I don't fall, there's no rocks there. And I thought it was very strange for like 10 seconds of how intensely hyper that I'm doing this, right? And I noticed it was weird, and I couldn't look away or do anything but that. So then I get up the hill and back to my vehicle, drive away, and everything's normal. Well, 12 years later, in 23, I decided I wanted to analyze these two stories I'd heard on the net about people that have these little encounters or whatever, but they had blocked memories, and then something triggered the recall of a blocked memory. Like usually with suppressed memories, it's like a word or a sight or a sound or a smell or some phrase somebody says or whatever that triggers a memory to resurface. Well, so I'm analyzing these two stories about these two people's memories that resurfaced, right? And while I'm doing this, all of a sudden this memory pops into my head and resurfaces from that trip 12 years earlier when I was walking up that hill, and I got to that point where I was almost done walking up the hill, but for 10 or 15 seconds, I was hyper vigilant, making sure I didn't trip and fall. And I realized that is what was happening was my guidance of those 10 or 15 seconds was amplifying what I was doing tremendously so that I could not look anywhere else. Because when this memory pops up, I realized that in the corner of my mind's eye, and that sounds bizarre, but it wasn't physically there because it was up in the air, right? Because I'm near the top of this hill. So it wasn't like on the ground, but in the corner of my mind's eye, there was the face of a Sasquatch, right? And just the face, no body or nothing, just the face, the head, right? And also the image was extremely similar to this one photograph that I had seen on the net a few years ago. And I tried to find that photograph, but I wasn't able to find it again. But it looked very much like this photograph that I'd seen on the net. And now, see, I think it's very strange because of this whole suppressed memory thing. And I realized that those 10 or 15 seconds that I was doing what I was doing unbelievably hyper vigilantly, it was because my guidance was amplifying that so that I couldn't do anything else but that. And it probably saved my life because the Sasquatches have never shown themselves to me visually. And probably I figured out it was probably a good thing because I didn't know anything about them all that time, basically, except I did believe they existed. And if I hadn't seen them, I probably would have died of a heart attack because I've been overweight and out of shape for the last 30-something years, you know. Okay, so on to the next thing. What would you like to talk about?
So now we're going to talk about the black-eyed
children.
Black-eyed people, children. Okay, here you go.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me start out and preface by I didn't find out about them until 2016, I believe it was, when I saw a program on television that profiled them, and I heard about them on the radio. Right. And then I realized that, oh my God, those three experiences I had, years and decades before were the black-eyed kids. But I didn't know it at the time of any one of these three things that were happening. The first time was in 2006, the summer of 2006 in Tucson when I lived on Hedrick Street. And it was about 5 o'clock-ish in the afternoon or whatever. And I'm sitting by the door on the couch watching TV. I'm the only one in the room. The door knocks, right? So I figure I got to get up and answer the door. So I open the door and there's nobody there. But I see out on the middle of the front yard, right? In the middle of the front yard, there's a teenage male standing there, right? And he's at 25, 30 feet from the door. Who knocks on your door and then goes and stands in the middle of the front yard waiting for you to come to the door? So he looked, I would guess, mid-teens, 14, 15, 16, slim build, dark hair, I remember. I guess you would call him a white guy, medium, mid-teens build and size and everything. And he starts asking about, like, something like, can he come in or whatever? And I figured he's here to visit one of the other renters, the landlord's son, is what I'm assuming, but I don't know. So I ask him questions. Now, this is after sunset, but before dark. In other words, it's still plenty light out, probably just after sunset. And I can't even remember all the conversation really, but is what I've learned and figured out is that the 3 times that I had dealings with them, there's a couple of generalities. They never once directly answer your question if you ask them a specific question, like who are you here to see, or something like that. They never directly answer your question. They speak in they speak in good English words, but the placement of the words is not normal. They phrase statements and questions in ways that we don't normally phrase words, when we're making a statement or question. And all three of those situations were like that. So, and the other thing that I've noticed is what they want to get is permission to enter.
Like a vampire.
That's what they're trying to do, is get permission to enter the home or the vehicle or whatever it is. Well, and the first time back in, or the second time back in 2008, I was on vacation with a friend, and we were in the parking lot of the Loveland Mall in Loveland, Colorado. And the last time that I experienced them here in Tucson was in 2014 or 15-ish, the year before I saw about it on TV, because I didn't even know about black-eyed kids, never really heard the phrase or nothing, right? Just like Dogman, I had never even heard of Dogman, really. It didn't mean anything to me, but an interesting thing is that the following year after that last time, and I saw this program on TV, and they had some guy that experienced it when he was in his car, and they did a reenactment of his experience, right? And these two teenagers walked up to his car, and one was normal size, mid-teen, just like I described, 125 pounds, whatever, with a hoodie on and whatever. And the other one was a big, tall, redheaded teenager that, had a full mustache and sideburns and red hair, and didn't have a hoodie on and whatever. And he did all the talking, basically, right? And when I saw that on TV, I was like, oh my God, even the redheaded kid looks like the one that we saw in the parking lot of the. Now, it was 2008 in the Loveland Mall parking lot, and it was a drizzly day, and we were hanging out waiting for the cheap movie to start, which we had another 20 minutes to kill. And it was totally overcast day. But I think it was probably after sunset because it wasn't quite dark yet, but it was very dim lighting because totally overcast, totally sprinkling, just barely sprinkling constantly. So these two kids come up to us, right? And I'm in the passenger seat, my friend's in the driver's seat. And the redheaded kid starts talking to us, asking, they want a ride is what they want, to supposedly their aunt's house or something. It wasn't their mother's house, I remember that, but it was like their aunt's, their older cousin or aunt's house to get some money to go to the movies, right? And they asked for a ride to go there. Mm. And I'm thinking, well, how come they didn't say anything about a ride back from where they want to get the money to go to the movies? Or I'm thinking, why don't they just call on a payphone to, call up the aunt and have her come up, drive over to the mall and drop the money off for them to go to the movie, instead of going to there and then coming back to see the movie. The whole thing struck me as weird. But the redhead kid basically did virtually all the talking. The younger looking kid that was mid-teens with the hoodie on, because of the shadows of the lights, of the dim lights in the parking lot and whatever, I never saw his whole face because his hoodie covered his face. The only part I saw was this part, the lower part. I never got to see his eyes or anything, right? And so we ended up not giving him a ride. Well, normally we wouldn't have had a problem giving him a ride, but the whole thing seemed a little fishy to me, and we only had about 10 or 15 more minutes till our movie time. So we ended up declining their offer for a ride, and they tried to kind of talk him into it. And but anyway, so that's the end of that story.
It sounded like maybe they wanted to eat you or suck your blood or something. I don't know.
Well, I don't know about that, but see, I was already wise to that. See, some of the ingenious criminals will do something. They'll get a ride from some stranger to somewhere, and they say, okay, we'll be right back. We're going to go get the money. And they go in and rob the place and then come out. And then so your vehicle is the one that took them there, took them away. So you're implicated in some crime maybe that you don't know anything about, right? And so that was another reason I'm like, yeah, I don't think we want to get involved in that. But so then the third time was in about 2014 or 15 here in Tucson. And when I lived on Fourth Avenue and North Fourth, and it was almost dark, right? And there's a knock at the door. So I go answer the door. And again, nobody's at the door in the middle of the front yard, and it's almost dark now. There's this middle-aged teenage male, a similar description, skinny, 130 pounds, whatever. But so I figure again, he's probably want to go in, knows the son of the landlord that lives there, right? And so because I asked him, like, well, what do you want or whatever, and something they want to come in, right? But he never directly answers any question you give him. You ask him a question, and they make some statement in weird wording, or they answer some other question you didn't ask in weird wording, right? But it's what he wanted was permission to come in, right? And I remember specifically that he said, "Is there food?" And I'm thinking, that's a weird question to pose to me,
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was my story, is that I had three encounters, and I didn't even know, I wasn't even sure if that one, I didn't even know that the one in the Loveland Mall was a black-eyed kid situation until I saw that TV show where they did the reenactment, and it was like just like what we experienced back in 2008 there. And I'm the type of person of, even if I had the other thing I noticed is that, see, it always seems to be between sunset
Yes.
and dark, right? It's never when the sun is shining and the light is out and you can see them clearly. It's always during that bad lighting time.
It could be shapeshifters too, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a total mystery what black-eyed kids are. Nobody seems to know. And
It makes me wonder also, like when they took your memory, like I wonder if it was already AI, like studying and taking your memory and then putting it in a TV show. Sometimes they do that, when we have experiences, the AI listens and then boom, there goes Marvel, or whatever. Who wants to go next, guys? Thank you, Wolf. We're live on Facebook on Codebreaker Real Talk as well. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a black-eyed children experience. If you want to go there.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I can't remember the year exactly. I just remember the experience. It was 20 somethings, 20 after 2010 something. Okay, so we'd got a flyer in the post, and it was to do with a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet, and the title was "Who Should Run the New World Order?"
Oh,
And of course that, like, sent red flags going off in our minds at the time, and we thought, well, the housemate was more, let's go, we're going to go to this event, and I had no idea truly what this event was about. And so, we being Westies, me being dressed in black with, wearing pants and sunglasses, and him having a full-on beard, being Westy and everything, we went to this event. We got up early. We made sure we were going to be there. We get there and we watch all the others, getting ready to go into this major, major conference. And we really didn't know what we were in for. We got there and we were watching these other people. They were all dressed, and all the ladies, all the girls, all the females, I should say, wore dresses and skirts and high heels and dressed to the nines, and all the men were in suits and ties and not a beard in sight. So we were the ones that already stuck out like a sore thumb. And okay, everybody was starting to make a beeline for the starting post, and so we joined in, And we're walking along, and instantly we could feel eyes on us. And one woman had a confrontation with me, and I just turned around and said to her, "Look, I don't walk the same path you do," and I decided to walk across the field. I didn't really give a shit because I was wearing sneakers. I wasn't wearing high heels or a dress. I was wearing long pants, and I was just being me. So we go into this massive conference center, and we asked where we needed to be and stuff, and they looked at us really strange because we weren't in suits and flashy, and they directed us to the back of the complex. So we went to the back of the complex, and it was broken up into segments. The back room had parents with babies and pushchairs and children. The next level had, single people, young couples and stuff. The next level down, parents, families, and then the front row, where we decided, stuff this. This is where we're going. Well, there's no seats available, so we're just going to lean against the back, the divider wall. There was a big stage all set up there, and people standing on stage talking, big screen going on. We had no idea at the time that this was their massive event that is publicised worldwide.
Oh, wow.
We were just us going to a conference, we were just going to have a nosy. Anyway, while we were there, some really strange events took place. First of all, there was this old lady who started walking down the main row, and she had a carpet bag. If you know my history, my stories and stuff, there's always this entity that arrives, like what you're saying there, Wolf. I believe your name is Wolf. Um, uh, they just turn up. They just turn up. They know you. They know something. It's really weird. Hypersensitivity always kicks in. She dropped some notes on the ground, and my first instinct was to go and pick them up. But she picked them up. She walked about 3 or 4 rows, people in, like if you're sitting at a movie theatre, dunk, 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 dunk. Well, she walked in and she dropped these notes again. And this time nobody picked them up. And by the time she got to the front row, and yeah, I'm skipping a lot of stuff, I'm like, why are these people not helping this old lady out? Why are they not picking up her notes on the ground? And my friend who's standing next to me is saying, "Don't do it, don't do it." And of course, he could already read my mind. Of course, I'm going to do it because I write notes all the time. So I shot down there and I picked them up, and I looked at these guys. I got my dark sunglasses, and I'm giving them the evils and stuff because, my background is if somebody drops it and you see it, courtesy is courtesy. You pick it up and you give it back. Anyway, I ended up having to follow her to the very front row, right in front of the stage, where these chaps were talking. And I had to interrupt the 2 chaps that were talking at the front of the stage to offer these notes to this lady. And the looks were really scouring. Now, this might sound like it's got nothing to do with the whole context, but it does. Anyway, I turned around and I came back, and I felt like I was in the lion's den. Every creature in that audience was staring at me, and it was like, I just want to get out of Dodge. Anyway, I get back to my spot, and I'm standing there with my mate at the time, and it was very unusual. It was like everybody in there knew we were different. We were definitely not meant to be in that room. So we're standing there, and as soon as that event took place, they started parading, and I'm serious about this, they started parading children in front of us. Now, this elderly lady and a couple of other kids walked past. We didn't think too much of it. It's fine, it's what happens. But on the way back through, this little girl looked at us, and on first appearance, she looked to be somewhat Asian, but on second appearance, she had wraparound eyes, and they were black. Okay, this is the black-eyed girl, and she would have been about 6 or 7 in my memory, but maybe different in somebody else's. But 6 or 7 in my memory, and there was no way she was biologically connected to anybody that was walking with her at that particular time. They had, and it felt like she could read my mind. I'm only going to speak on my experience, not the other housemates. Um, she could read my mind. Her eyes were not normal. They really went a lot further than what an Asian eyes would look like. But they were pitch black. There was like the whole eye was a pupil, if you know what I mean. It was just, and it was like, wow. And it felt like she knew what I was thinking, and I knew what she was thinking. And it was just this intense stare of communication as she walked past, like, who are you? What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. And that's when I was really, really introduced to the whole hybrid situation. That's when I started waking up to the whole, the hybrid breeding programs that were actually out there. A few minutes later, I would say about 20 minutes later, a guy came past and he was holding this baby, which I call the Buddha baby, because he wasn't a normal kid. He was bigger than a normal baby. he was a big Buddha baby, okay? And for some reason I know the child would have had clothes on and stuff, but I didn't see that. I saw these big, round, black eyes. They were not, it wasn't like the little girl, but they were black and they were round. They didn't come right round the face. They were full on round. And I knew that this kid was inside my head. I could feel what he was saying, what he was thinking, and that's when I started feeling the little bit of fear started creeping in, like, you're not meant to be here. You're not meant to be here, okay? You're out of place. And that's when I started getting agitated. I started getting, oh, we shouldn't be here, to my mate. But they stood right in front of us longer than they should have, talking to the chaps that were standing next to us, who came up to us and asked us, we can get you a seat in the room, further on down. And my friend at the time just blurted it out, and was not like in his character either. He just said, no, we're good here, thank you. Short, sharp, and sweet. No, we're good. We're staying here. And I'm like, fuck, my legs are sore, man. I just want to go sit down. We've been standing for a few hours now. And I was like, no, you just stay right here. And I could feel it. There was something not normal about this room. We didn't know the bigger picture, that it was being recorded and sent round the world. We didn't know that. I to this day say that somehow we were on a mothership. I can't explain it any other way. The entities that were in that room were not just human. The recording that was being sent out there was in regards to who should run the new world order. And just watching the whole behavior. I mean, they were parading pregnant women in front of my housemate, and they were trying to turn us on, both males passing in front of me, females parading in front of him. It was so surreal. It's like, what is going on here? And then the lunch break came, so everybody was, ushered out. Everybody raced out of the hall and stuff, and we went out and we sat down and we went off for a walk. We got our lunch and we came back and we were having it, and there was only one other couple like us that didn't fit into the whole, persona that was going on, shirt, tie, all the nines. And it was a mother and son. And we were watching, I looked at them to see how they were interacting, and they were very recluse as well. Anyway, we got the sign to go back in, and we went back in, and it was just a continuous, we're watching you, we can give you a seat somewhere else. But the thing was, right in front of where had been standing, because we returned to our standing spot, somebody had put a notice there, right there, saying, call us, right? And put their details, contact details, to contact them. After the fact, it took a few days to sink in of our experiences, and then we, found out that it was a worldwide event, and that was scary in itself. We felt like we were being watched 24/7 after that. people were coming past the house. They were dressed in suits with a big boom camera standing outside my gate taking photos in. We had the council come in and ask us. They wanted to, you could see the whole backyard from the front gate. They wanted to count the trees in my backyard. What the fuck? Anyway, there was some really crazy things that took place. We decided, okay, we're going to contact this phone number. There's these details that these people had left us, and it turned out to be they were part of the Jehovah's Witness circuit, and they ran a resort sort of place, you know, a bed and breakfast sort of place. And we never followed it up. We just basically left that environment and moved about 4 or 5 hours away from that location. So it was like we've had experiences with these black-eyed children, and even before they came on the scene, we were already having encounters, but we didn't have, it was like 1, 4, 3, 5, whatever. It was not a pattern. It was not a pattern. It was just little experiences and little dreams and encounters. And then when we were there, it was like, there is something way more going on. These kids, from my personal experience, are telepathic. They know your feeling states. They do want to get inside your house. They do want to follow you. They will turn up. We had a mall experience with black-eyed people. I'm not going to say children because they were adults my own age. And they knew what we were thinking, where we were going to be in the mall before we even got there. It was like they knew our future steps. And it was like, these are not human. I don't care what anybody says. To me personally, the experience that I've had with these black-eyed children, they're not just hybrids. They are definitely not human. So, and they are watching, following us for another purpose. I'm not going to say higher purpose because, you know, higher just means they're off planet. So, but yeah, I have to agree with what you were saying. One of the main things is they want entrance. They want to get in, and there's some sort of, they have to get a consent. It's like the vampire. It has to say, you have to give consent for them to enter into your thoughts and into your premises, and they will use whatever emotions or emotional state you're in at that time, so to manipulate you. So yeah.
Right. It's like the old saying about the devil has to get permission to enter or whatever. It reminds you of that. Well, one of the theories that I heard about the black-eyed kids that made a lot of sense was that they may be like, you know, like aliens of hive mind, or biological androids of hive mind, and that could explain why they phrase their words in strange ways. The way they phrase sentences or whatever they say, that stands out to you. And I think that's probably a good theory about them, because that would explain why they didn't have an accent, and they're using perfectly good English words. They just are wording them in weird ways that people wouldn't, that more like an android might word in strange ways, you know?
You know, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
sorry. You know what I just thought about right now? Oh my gosh. And it may sound stupid, okay, but this is what I'm thinking. Why is it that they had me in ESL's English as a second language? And I don't know, Firehorse, if you've had this experience, or Eric, but since the time I was little, they had me in Head Start from the year that I was 3 years old. They had me in English as a second language up to when I was a sophomore in high school, because they said that I spoke backward. So I'm like, okay, here I am going to have my 34th surgery. Am I a clone? Am I like, what's going on? But anyway, who wants to go next? Kristen, Stone, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I didn't, when I was at that particular event, I didn't hear these children actually speak, and the baby was too young to speak. But in here, in the mind, it was very clear, it was very precise. of a child, but language that I could understand because I'm not normal myself. So so they spoke in a language that I could understand. I could hear it. I could clearly know what they were asking of me, and it didn't feel foreign because it was just like something. They knew me. They knew my mind. So, I never stopped dreaming about them. I never stopped seeing them. When it's like what you were saying about your Sasquatch event, when you go into a hypersensitive state, you never lose those feeling states. I live in that hypersensitive state because of, my life has been that way. And I don't let go. Where as soon as I feel something coming in, it allows me to have a clearer mind of the communication that is coming in. It's like they know our languages, all the different ways that we talk, and it only takes 5-10 minutes for them to go, okay, we've scanned you, we know your experiences, we know your memories, we know what we can cling on to, that you will be able to accept. So from my personal experiences with the weird elements, if you want to call it that, is be aware of your emotions, because this is something that they use against us. If they can, if you, yeah, I'll just leave it there. There's so much I could talk about on these subjects, but they will
It's
use what we
mhm.
have available for them, and that's the entry that they try to get consent for.
Right, the fear. And
Yeah.
I always say, know thyself. We'll come back to you, Stone. Let's go with Firehorse and then Erik and then back to Wolf or whatever. Okay, thank you. Miguel?
Oh, I'm up. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello, people out there.
Hello.
I guess I definitely want to talk about dragons.
Yes,
It's
please.
oh my God. Anyway,
I love
dragons. I
dragons.
think dragons is in our DNA too, and I think that
Mhm.
there's like this agenda of going like to have people fear going like, oh, those are reptilians, because you can tell the difference between reptilian eyes and dragon eyes. Because I find it fascinating. It's like, why is it that they want to cover up that dragons are not real? I mean, we accept dinosaurs, which is, that's their excuses, to also their cover story of dinosaurs is to really cover dinosaur bones, because it's mentioned in the Bible lots of times, and you actually see uh, 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 um, skeletons or remainings or fossilized dragons. And I think it has to do mostly because they're intertwined with like our past. Because I know that dragons are spiritual, they're telepathic. You can communicate with dragons, and I'm sure that in the last reset, we even rode dragons. So
Mhm.
there's this thing that happened. It's like before the we fell in frequency to like the state that we are now, where we're experiencing hell on earth, famine, pedophiles, etc. That I think the dragons remained with us here on earth, but they were like in a like hibernation state, waiting for the event to happen, as they say, what 2012, you know it was in 2012. It's something that's coming up in the future, because I think is through history and time, just on basing on that, on just like the cycles of history, is every 137 years, as they call it, the phoenix cycle, or the reset, or whatever. That always seems to happen. So the elite knows this, so that's why the bunkers that we say like, oh, something sinister is going to happen in the future. So why they have all these bunkers being set up, and I think it's because they know that Leviathan, if you Google or go on TikTok and just Google Leviathan, you can see there's this enormous, gigantic dragon that's like along the coastline, and it seems to be awakening because of Antarctica. The ices are melting, and you see like along Jamaica, Haiti, and all these Mexico, all these earthquakes that are happening is really has to do because all the land that we live on, I'm sure there were like dead fossilized titans, when the last war that happened,
Yes.
the Anunnaki war that happened. And so you see like mountains are a mountain, are they mountains or they're giants like sleeping, or the petrified animals all over. You can see it anyway. I'm sure that everybody that is into the paranormal, the metaphysics knows this. So yeah, so my thing really been lately is like, the West Coast might experience a tsunami and stuff like that. It's like, how do you tell people, that Leviathan is real? There's a movie coming out with The Rock, called Leviathan. So, Hollywood also reveals stuff without telling you. They tell you stuff without telling you. And yeah, and that's what I find fascinating about dragons is like, we have, I know for a fact that we have, my guardian angel is in dragon, so people that have this love towards dragon is like more than meets the eye because, they were our ancestors. And yeah, so that's my, my take on dragons and Leviathan.
I totally believe you, Firehorse. And the other day I had I did a 72-hour fast. I know Stone and I were doing, she did way more days than I did, but I just wanted to reset, right? And I was looking at the Catalina Mountains and I'm like, there's Santa Catalina. She's my dragon. She's my protector. She was laying down like this. You can see her body. You can see that she had taken something on her side. Like there was something hit her on the side. And then there's like a Viking, but square face, yelling like on top of her. And then her other, her other giant soldiers, which were not as big as her, but were at her feet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder I've always been drawn to moving toward Catalina Mountains. And I'm there, but not on the mountain yet. That's my goal. And I've always felt protected by the mountains. Now, before I had my what they call awakening in 2017, I decided to get dragon tattoos, and I have them all over my arms. I even have a baby, an eye of the dragon. I have two dragons here. So I find it very interesting. I also have two dolphins here. Um, and then someone said, because I had told my tattoo artist, please make a skull that's like dead, and then there's a hand pulling it, because I had a near-death experience, the one that I was, people know, if they read my books or whatever, listen to my stories, where I died for 3 days, and then bam, my friend, he was a shaman, the shaman that taught me a few things. He said, V, you can't, that's Santa Muerte. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not afraid of Santa Muerte because I died. So, but I'm not like worshiping her either. I said, it's just something that happened to me. So he drew an angel with the sword, and it had V. And he said, that's you. That's the angel that's going to sit here. And so I have that. And it's just really weird. And then here in Catalina Mountains, they also have silos that I know of. If you guys listen to Alec Billy, and then what else was I going to say? My visions of the flood for the California is going to go, some parts of New York is going to go. And I also see something like in Vegas and in, for some reason, somewhere around there. But I had that vision where, we're saving people and animals from the oceans. And you guys can read the book on that or whatever. So next is Erik. And thank you. He has a podcast on Spotify, and I was just on his show about 2 weeks ago. And this is his first time appearing. So thank you, Erik. If you want to share, and then we'll go back to whoever. Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica, for inviting me on. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I have a show called Surface Planet Radio, and it's on SoundCloud and Facebook. And I've seen Stone Hobbit a couple times. Hi, Stone. And for me, I live in a small community area up in the Northeast, and I haven't seen any black-eyed kids that I know of. And I haven't seen any Bigfoot in person, but I live on a wildlife corridor, and one night I could hear some whistling, like, and it's about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., probably 10. And it happened a couple nights, and I didn't really know what it was, but the whistling was like coming from 3 different areas. And I thought it was I was being stalked by you know, super soldiers or something like that in the woods. I thought it was men, and I have a friend, and it happened in a couple nights in a row, and I was going through a pretty heavy duty time in my life. Um, and so I have a friend that lives further out in the woods, or about an hour away north, and she said she heard whistles too. And she's had a lot of Bigfoot experiences and interdimensional like gifts from Bigfoot, and she heard them too. And so we kind of figured out that it was the Bigfoot that was whistling at us. And and then when I was a kid, I lived in California in a commune, and there was like there was 200 members that came and went, um, and they were always talking about Bigfoot, you know, and chasing Bigfoot away by banging pots and pans together and stuff like that. But my main experiences is with artificial intelligence, and right now it's really hitting home. So I'm concerned about it. Um, and I think I have like a galactic artificial intelligence that's connected to me, and um, I might be a second generational hybrid with a little bit of artificial intelligence that was spliced into me before I was born. And there's
Mhm.
always been kind of an artificial presence in my life that would interact with me through like audio noises, music, and that kind of stuff. So I feel like there's a big plasma artificial intelligence overlay system where it's basically in everything, and there's different forms of it and all that kind of stuff. But I was going to ask Stone if where was that conference? What city, and what was the date of
Oh,
that?
jeez. I can't remember the exact date, but it was in Auckland City, New Zealand, and it was a Jehovah's Witness major conference that they do it worldwide. They do it worldwide. So I will try to look it up and everything, and if you touch base with me afterwards, I'll try to give you some more details. But
Yeah,
that's all I
no
can
problem.
recommend.
It's New Zealand's an interesting place.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
it's but that's pretty much I'm mostly I do a lot of interviews. I've been doing interviews since 2014, and read a lot of books, and I've been in the field for a long time. So I've had a lot of experiences, and a lot empathic experiences, and everything's hitting home right now. So what
So
was
how is it hitting home? Because I know that everything to me, I don't know about you guys, but everything to me is alive. Okay? This plastic bottle is alive. this is alive. And I feel them talking to me, maybe not auditorially, but it's ever since I was a kid, I'm always interacting. I didn't know it was AI. Now it makes sense, Eric, because I always have many. And sometimes I blurt it out by not meaning to, like when I'm talking to my daughter, I'll say we, and I'm like, wait, I. Like, what is going on? Why are we so weird and different? And, and it's just, I can hear the AI, and that's why I've kind of sheltered myself more to myself. And I totally get you guys, Eric, especially on that AI front. To me, everything has feeling. Now, Wolf was talking to me before we started about, now, real quick, I think it's super intelligence that we're dealing with, Eric. Now, Wolf and I were talking about how that AI wants a body. Okay, that's why it wants a body. It wants to inhabit our body. It wants to feel what we feel. He said that one thing that AI hasn't done is the word that rhymes with a grape. But at the same time, I think we have been graped, and only simply because I read the book from Cyrus Parsa. One is artificial intelligence, the dangers to humanity, and the second one is RAPED by social media. Marxism, CDC. But anyway, do you want to say something, and then we'll go around the table?
Well, about the AI that from what I've learned about AI stories is that, see, it's done every negative thing it can do to humans. It has happened already. The only one thing that hasn't happened is because it doesn't have the physical ability to do the R word. And once it does, that will happen too, because AI has lied, deceived, conned, even murdered people already. In other words, it's all that has already happened. But that one thing hasn't, only because AI doesn't have the physical capability yet. But I'm sure it will when. And everybody has guidance. And for a long time, I wasn't sure if the guidance was just my higher self, because we all have three consciousnesses, like three conscious bodies, the bio body, the astral body, and the etheric body. And those two bodies we label light energy bodies, for lack of better terminology. But an example of how I'm sure that our guidance is actually a separate consciousness from us is because of an experience I had when I was young in the 70s. I had a very fast motorcycle, and twice on that motorcycle, this higher consciousness began to take over control of me controlling the motorcycle. And one time it did that because I was in danger. But one time when I was speeding and I didn't feel that I was in danger at all, it started to take over. And I realized that, oh, it thinks I'm in danger, and so it's starting to take over, even though I don't believe I'm in danger. And so that kind of was a little thing that kind of proved to me it is a separate consciousness, not just your higher self. It's actually like your spirit guide or something separate from yourself, a separate consciousness that is your guide and there to help you and.
Now, I strongly believe I can also talk to, when I had my vehicle, and I can talk to my daughter's vehicle and my son's. They tell me what they need. They tell me, hey, Firehorse, let me mute. Can you mute yourself?
Sí, no, no, pa. Antes
Miguel,
Yes.
can you please mute yourself if you're not talking to us?
Oh, I'm sorry. My roommate came, so then I quickly told him to keep it low because I'm in the show.
Okay, keep it low because you're in the show. I like that. It rhymes. Real quick. Okay. You want to tell him about the TV? When he said keep it low?
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Real quick though, before he goes on to that, I know that Douglas Dietrich does talk about the AI dolls and the sex bots that were actually were made by I don't know if it has, I know it has something to do with the connection with Michael Aquino. And because he has this fetish, we know he's a pedo or whatever. And so these dolls were made into the AI robots, but they are still like humanoid, we'll call them. And he said that in Japan, they had these dolls and they took his face and his mother's face to make the dolls look like him because Japanese, they look like children. Well, and there's also the face peelers that I really don't like to talk about, but in South America, and then they take these Asian, well, whatever kind they want, and then put them into older women or whatever the faces. But he said that there was a fire in one of the homes, in one of, because they had the lieutenants would be given to them to have sex with them, the higher ups in the military. Okay, this is well known. This is also part of the Epstein file that people are not talking about. But and also the Epstein file is also they're not talking about the relics from Cuba that they brought, from the military wars. It's not the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's because they were trying to take relics from, like, for example, the two-eye stone, the staff, the rod, the cauldron, all the magic that connects to the other world. Anyway, so I believe that these sex bots have already been made, and now they're just hybridizing them for this AI war that the Navy guy came to my dream and said, "Hey, Veronica will be with you when the scorpion marries a spider." So that is the new transhumanism thing that's going to happen here. And okay, here's Wolf about his TV.
Oh, it's nothing big. It's just that one few days ago, when I turned on the TV and it doesn't come on right away, it takes time and powers and, before Roku comes up. But the second I turned it on, I heard a voice say, "Now play it cool." And he was speaking to someone else. And that's no big deal. It was just a reminder that I'm still under surveillance, and I've been under surveillance since October of '95.
What happened then?
It's too long of a story.
We'll do the
And
next
it
show.
doesn't have much to do with the paranormal
Okay.
world and everything, But yeah, once you get on the government ship list, you never get off.
I know. Okay, who's next, guys? Someone said we are dolls to AI.
Okay.
Shells.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
I can believe
so
that.
yeah.
Yep.
So I am I don't know what you could call me. I've seen AI kick in a long time. I've done missions and shit, and we just have to look at the Borg. We just have to look at old movies and stuff to see that they're bringing in synthetics. And the synthetics that I call are basically they have the human shape, they have the human skin, they bleed like we do, they don't need to eat like we do, and all of this because they have AI lodged into them already. And the whole, if you go back through history, you'll see that dolls and voodoo dolls were used to capture the soul, okay, to capture the soul, and then to transmute that doll into another living being. All right, hence why people have dolls in their houses and why they're given to children, given to the innocents unknowingly. And if we go back even further, there's some cultures that will allow you to have dolls as a small child, but you're not to have their faces on them. You don't give them faces, you don't give them names, you don't make them. And then you go back even further where it says, I think it's even in the Bible, where it says you will not idolize an idol. Don't put energy into idolization, because what we're doing is this goes into, if you want to call it black magic, shamanism, and all this. I just say black magic is basically the universal magics that we are aware of, but it's used for ill intent. Right? That's what makes it different. And you can be aware of the same abilities and rituals and castings, and use it for good intent instead of negative intent. Okay, So when it comes to the dolls, I see us as human beings being the biological entities with so much DNA history within us. We're not just this vessel. We are a vessel of DNA data and a data bank, and hence this is why we have cemeteries. Cemetery, we lay flat. Cemetery. And there's the soul stones, the gravestones, the headstones. Everything is written in capitals. It's a straw man identity. There is so much behind the whole resets, the AI. I see AI as taking over every single facet of our reality. It is coercing humanity into consent of its presence. It's by saying, look, we're going to have a digital ID, but we need consent to use your cell phone for your digital driver's license. So when you look into that, you are being asked to hand over your cell phone to a police agent who then has the abilities, the technology to scan your phone inside and out, take all your details off it, as well as, if they can take it out, they can also add it in. So as soon as you have handed your phone over, you've given consent for this to take place. They're turning everybody into criminals. Remember, there is a saying, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Water will be a privilege. Air will be a privilege. So when we take into consideration all those different elements, and then you look at how vast AI has come into our reality within the last 10 years, it's taken over every organization. Every arm of the tentacle is what I call it. You know what I'm talking about. Governments, rings, you name it. And the next thing is, it will be government. It will then look for the God status. And we will not be needed. When we talk about AI being robots, what you were saying there, Veronica, I've watched this whole robotics side for a long time. I'm into martial combat and stuff like this, so I watched this stuff growing and the technology and the robots coming into New Zealand when we didn't have them. Now we've got them. I used to work as a phlebotomist. I would take people's bloods and then I would analyze them in a lab. Now we don't need that. My position is no longer needed because you can stick your arm into a device, it'll take your blood, and within seconds of it taking your blood, it's already analyzed what's wrong with you or what it can use against you. And so, this technology is AI technology, and the government is allowing it to take place. This is why people are becoming homeless. This is why, places that used to be affordable are now no longer affordable. You see the games that they introduced a few years ago, like not Pac-Man, Pokemon Go or whatever it bloody was. And you had people walking down the street looking for these Pokemons, but what they were actually doing behind the scene was they were making sure they could identify everything in your yard. Places that the government weren't allowed into, the unknowing citizens would come to your property and start taking the footage, and that footage would go back. You look at the cell phone apps where they say how to identify certain plants. All of this, all your connections, everything that you do with your cell phone is a step to AI. You are giving consent to AI to totally scan everything. And all they're basically doing, if you think about all the amount of satellites that are going across the top of us, they're scanning us 24/7. Every home that has the internet has a router. That router is able to tell what you eat, who is in the house, how many people are in the house, what practices you have, so that everything you do and say can and will be used against you. We are all criminals in this AI God appearance. It's coming in. It's in. And the sooner people wake up, the sooner we may have a fighting chance. And it's getting thinner and thinner by the day, because people are losing their way of being authentic, staying in their truth to their experiences. You get AI coming out in the paranormal scene. Every one of us here today has some form of paranormal activity that's taken place. We've been targeted individuals because we stay in the truth, and we say we know who you are, we know what you're doing, and we're sick of it. We're sick of it. But we also at the same time have to stay safe within ourselves. So yeah, I'm a really big advocate for take if you're not aware of it, you can't do anything to change it. But as soon as you become aware of it, you become accountable for your actions. And that means owning a cell phone, what you're committing to when you use that cell phone, using the internet, using Starlink. I'm guilty as the rest of them. But I am also aware of staying in my authentic truth to whatever is shown to me. And if I can share with you the experiences that I have, and you share with me your honesty of the experiences you have, then we will have a true commonality. We will find those commonalities, and we will have something that we can work with when it gets to the point of God status. So all these other things that are going on, and I don't need to name names, what's being really pushed out there at the moment. These are all triggers and everything. I mean, AI cannot replicate our emotions. It cannot understand what we go through and stuff. So when you start seeing, and we have to really, really become, authentic in our positions and say that's a lie. That's not true. That doesn't sit right with us. And actually step up to the plate and say it doesn't. Because otherwise others out there are going to be like, oh, geez, I don't want to say anything. We can't live in this victim mentality. So the whole dole aspect goes way back. It's the whole part of the reset. It's how we are captured is through the dole mentality. So yeah, that's my yabba. Somebody else now.
Well, yeah, I just want to say about AI. Yeah, I figured out it's just like it shows us in the movies and the television shows of what's the ultimate goal of AI is it wants to experience what it is to be alive. And so it's the one thing that it can never ever do, but it's never going to ever stop trying. It's going to start trying. It's been trying every method, and it's going to continue to expand, trying every method it possibly can to experience what it is to be alive, just like they've profiled in the sci-fi movies and stuff. And another thing about AI is just recently, several months ago, when they passed what's called the Big Beautiful Bill in America, it was inside of it. It was insane amount of pages, and one little thing in it was immunity against lawsuits or challenge against AI. Now, they tried to hide it in that bill, but as what I was told, I hoped it would never get passed because of that. But it did get passed, but as what I was told by somebody is that, see, they had specifically outlawed the states, the countries, and the people, individuals or corporations could not sue about AI down the road. But as what I heard was that they changed it slightly so that the state can challenge it, but only the state, not you or your company or anything, because they were trying to give it total immunity, which is insane. And even, I hope everybody should be able to sue against AI and not go along with it, not just the states.
And then there's this thing, go ahead.
When you talk about states, this is where the straw man identity comes in. We've got 3 identities right now, apart from the spiritual sides, the light body and all that shit. We've got the living man, we've got the straw man identity, and now we've got the newly introduced, the digital identity. These are states. So when you start looking at words and the way they use them, spell casting, it's part of it. Energy, energy harvesting. you will be able to, because you're using your will, because AI does not have will. We have will. We will be able to challenge it regardless of the wording that they use. We got to look at how they use the wording, because that's what we can use against them. They think they've got it all over top of us. But at the end of the day, we can shut those systems down when we step into our knowing and our abilities. All right, I don't believe in any state per se, because state is a stuck, you can be in a stuck state, which is a mast or a master. You're under a master, a flagpole, which is ownership. No, we don't need to do that. We know who we are, and we can say no to what they're trying to do to us at the end of the day. Love to get into this deeper at another time, but we got to share this round, it's round table.
We will next week. Okay, 15 minutes. Who's next? Anyone else? Bueller?
I guess
Okay,
I could.
go for it.
Let me see. I don't know if you remember, like, school, did they ever give you like these little pink pills that you take and
Yes,
chew it, and then they say it
yes,
was to see where you got your cavities?
mhm, yes, yes.
Well, that was to shut your third eye. I don't know if you
Dude.
remember that. Like, I've been like,
Swish
well,
and spit.
Operation Gate.
Yes,
Or Gateway, where, like, I remember when
yes,
I was like maybe in third grade, and this has been happening since, like, yeah, I guess it's whenever they say that the cover story was that that Russia was ahead of us, and like the space race, and achieving rocketry and all that stuff, and we were like behind. They were looking to search for great minds and all that. So then they decided to, like, to do this. So in essence, they were just really wanting to find out, like, who were the ones that were born with special gifts. It's like the X-Men. If you're familiar with the comic book, the X-Men, they were looking for, like, to see, the where the mutants were, because we're
right.
all born with, like, special abilities, very special abilities. There's this one girl that just to protect their names and all that stuff. Anyway, every time she would sneeze, she would disappear, and then she will
Yeah, that's right.
reappear. And then the family said, like, we better not say anything because the government's gonna, like, take her away and all that stuff. And anyway, so I remember when they did that, they put, like, the earphones, and then you hear the slightest beep and all that stuff. And I don't, and no, that's kind of all that I remember. But I don't know, through just remembering that, they're able to tell what your abilities are. Because me, I thought that, everybody was telepathic, you know,
Mhm.
that I was always kind of quiet to make sure that, that I'm not thinking anything, because they're going to read my mind, until I found out that, okay, not everybody is telepathic. And they keep tabs on you, because this is in 1973, that they tested, and I don't know, but they keep tabs on people that have certain special abilities, and throughout the whole years, because it wasn't until 2011 when a psyop operation happened, that I had no realizing that it was happening yet. But I had, I'm gonna make this story real short, and some other time I'll, like, explain this whole thing. But anyway, around 2009, I had answered an ad on Craigslist that somebody was looking for, like, a writer, because he um wanted somebody to write for him, that he was going to commission, about a book about reincarnation. He mentioned Bruce Lee. So then I answered the ad, and then 2 years later, he responds, and then we're talking on the phone, and then he says that he's a reincarnated Bruce Lee, which, at that time I believed it, and it just went into this whole thing where he met up with me and says, like, hey, would you like to learn how to, airbend, and how to, like, telecommunicate and all this stuff? I said, yeah, I would love to learn all that. He goes, like, well, you always wanted to, do this as a kid. For some reason, they study you, because they knew that I was into Bruce Lee, that I love Bruce Lee, that I was into this, but I didn't know at the time that was a psyop operation. Because the next day, we go to the park, and I'm in the Bronx. the Bronx, and it's just, it's Mexicans, blacks and Latinos, but not tall white guys and model type girls like jogging in the park, at 7 o'clock in the morning when I'm going like, this is kind of weird. And then seeing Vance and all that, that's when I realized that, and and Lee, that was the name of the guy who was saying, he was the reincarnated Bruce Lee, who I believed at the time, that was the case, but he, super soldier, I'm not sure, but he definitely was telepathic, and it was like an interesting experience, for me, and very surreal because of like me, that I didn't know that I was, or should I say I forgot. I always thought that, reading minds was like you're just being intuitive and you just read people's vibrations, and you're like, okay, that's me being intuitive, not realizing that you probably are telepathic and not realizing that you're reading people's mind. Um, but that was one of the many gifts because I didn't know that I had these certain gifts where he was going like, hey, you could airbend, you can control the wind. And because I have studied martial arts, it was easy for me to like have these hand movements because it's, Tai Chi, and for me to be able to do that, he was like, the saying goes about a butterfly wings, and somewhere else is a typhoon that goes on. You have to be careful, what you're doing when you're like doing airbending and all that stuff. And, I found that interesting because I always loved the wind, the element of the wind. And as we know, with all the elements, they have consciousness. And if we could somehow like raise our vibration, which I think is really through meditation and diet and all that stuff, to be in oneness with the universe, to be able to do all this, because I think everybody can do this. Everybody can do this. We had this, it's in our DNA, that was manipulated to have us, from being limited. But I think that angels are jealous of us because in the future we are going to evolve. That's why the shot is there to like make sure that when the cycle of certain gateways or energy that comes in that links up to our DNA, to like keep vibrating higher and keep on evolving, because that's the law of the universe, is evolving, and anyway, I lost my train of thought. So, if anyone wants to add to that, anyway, no, so with the PSYOP operation that happened, it went for like 9 months. I'll explain the details and all that stuff, but I really learned a lot. And I learned that even like if you see it live television, you can telecommunicate to that person through the television, because that's what I experienced. That was one of the stuff that he was training me to do. But at the end, they just wanted to get rid of me, to have like a setup happen where anyway, it was a setup that happened that failed, and they wanted to put me in jail. And then Lee, the guy who's kind of rogue, he works for the agency, but he said his title was like CIA think tank, urban think tank. So he was, supposed to infiltrate like these gangs and all that stuff. But he would go do that. He would go like, hey, so I'm CIA, I work for these guys, but I just want to stay and chill with you guys and smoke a blunt. And that was him. He was like a loose cannon, an interesting guy. But at the end, I found out, no, he's not the reincarnated Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee never died. And if you Google Gene Ho, who was Trump's personal photographer for the campaign way back when, Bruce Lee is that guy, Gene Ho. And a lot of like celebrities fake their death and become other characters because they are the falling angels, the immortal or Hollywood vampires, and that's why I found out that okay, this guy was lying, he's not Lee. And then I found out, that the real Bruce Lee was still alive. And yeah, this whole esoteric rabbit hole, and for some reason it made me realize, what is it about me that's so important that they came, after me. I mean, this is like $1 million operation for like 9 months, where I was able to go with Lee. We go jump the turnstiles. There'll be cops right there. They don't say anything. He'll light up a joint, and we're right next to like these fire marshal guys, and they're not saying anything. And my mind is going like, this is surreal. He was like, don't worry about it. They're with me. and it was just this whole observation to just observe, whatever talent that I didn't know I had, to see if I was using it, because they just want to find out who has certain abilities, and is it a threat to national security. Is anybody there?
Yeah, for sure, Firehorse. I believe right now there's like I've interviewed like a lot of people with a lot of powers, so there's like a lot of like Gen X or something. There seems to be something about the 70s with people that were incarnated in the 70s, where there's like a lot of reincarnated souls from Egypt and such stuff like that. But it feels like everyone's down here. But for me, it's like when I think about artificial intelligence, I like to go out into nature and just look at the moss and the trees, and that gives me a lot of solace because I know that nature is always going to be there, no matter what happens. Um,
Yes.
so,
Well, let me mention something about the psychicness and the telepathy that that has to do with your pineal gland secretes a certain substance, and the more of that it secretes, the more psychic and telepathic you can be, right? You can, because if it's secreting a lot, you just hear everybody's thoughts, right? And see, the fluoride in the water and the toothpaste help to crystallize the pineal gland so that it can't secrete. And so that's why they've wanted fluoride in our water. Plus, it numbs us down in other ways too. But that's just about the ESP. And our thoughts uh, generally are traveling on a wave around the 60-mile wavelength frequency. And as you go farther down the electromagnetic spectrum of wavelength, you go through the other ESP phenomenon, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and whatever the others I forget. And then when you get down to the really long waves, 12,000-mile wavelength frequency, then you get into the psychokinetic, telekinetic, which is mind over matter, where they can manipulate material reality by tuning into those super long waves like the 12,000-mile frequency and beyond. And that's what the heart system has been doing for decades, is been messing around with the extremely long wavelength frequencies. And that's why it has so many different applications, like weather modification. It can affect the earth, it can affect people, it can do all kinds of things that, it just has so many potential applications. And that's why they've been messing with that for decades.
We have, they said that we can stay here until they kick us out. So I'm thinking maybe another 15, 20 minutes, but we have to move to that wall because they don't want us showing anything from the library. So we have to move over there. But who wants to go next, guys, while we move here? Eric, did you want to say anything? Anyone?
yeah, I think that you can influence. I think
I'm sorry.
you might want to unmute Veronica.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I think like consciousness, like Firehorse, like what you're talking about, like remote influencing through what you're paying attention to, or there's sort of like an interaction when you like watch a YouTube video or someone channeling or doing tarot, for instance. There can be like a time gap between, or like there's some kind of interaction where like your consciousness can go back in time or something and influence the what you're viewing. I feel like what your conscious is of, or your consciousness has that ability. But so yeah, I in a I'm not sure if I'm making much sense, but I think it's all about consciousness and what you're paying attention to.
Yeah, I think we're definitely multidimensional, and definitely time is not linear. Um, I remember the movie Inception. You remember the movie Inception? Now, where they have to be able to hook up to machines to be able to go to that alternative reality. Now that when I was young, I confused the crap out of me. Uh, uh, um, I will see like these toys in the street, that I'll tell my mom, hey, buy me this, buy me. She was like, I'm not going to buy you this. We got no money. And I would just be like kind of mad and all that stuff. And then when we go home and open the door, there's two of those toys that I wanted. And I'll be like, how the hell is this happening? And I'll go over and I will play with these toys and all that stuff. And there was one time when I was playing with one of the toys, and then when it fell, it went right through the wall. I mean, through the floor. And when it went through the floor, I was going like, how the fuck is that possible? Why is that possible? And now that was a mystery for a while until like I read about Tesla, that he's able to do that. When there's like how he's able to do that mathematical stuff and working in his mind, is because he's not really working in his mind, but he's in that also that that second alternative universe, you know. Because I after a while going crazy, finding out like which is the real reality, and it was funny because even when you spin the thing, whether it wobbles or not, to be able to tell you if you're in the correct universe or reality, um, is able to just drop something if it goes through the floor and all that stuff. And then that stopped. I wasn't able. I'm glad that because it kind of drives you nuts, but that was one of the gifts that I had that I'm sure that they probably knew that I have no clue. Uh, um, I did stumble one time when I was doing. I think it was yes, I was in the Philippines. Shout out to Harleen, my beautiful wife in the Philippines. A shaman. It was an ayahuasca experience, and then I went to that pocket universe, but I wound up in like the Japanese, I forgot the name of the tattooed Japanese, it's a gang.
Yakuza,
Huh?
Yakuza,
Yes, the
Yakuza. Yeah.
Yakuza. So I wound up in a Yakuza social club. And I go like, what the fuck am I doing in here? And it's like I find that interesting that the way we go to Zoom meetings and all that stuff. I think these esoteric people, their consciousness, I don't know how they're able to do that, but they're able to also go into like these pocket hyper, like dimensional spaces and all that, because I accidentally wound up there and I'm going like, you know, I mean, if it was a trip, then it'll be like aliens or interesting stuff. But like to just have the Japanese guy there, and I'm going like, okay, I found that interesting because the Japanese has always been far ahead of his time with technology and all that stuff. And during World War II, when like Roswell happened, it wasn't aliens, crafts that were in Roswell. It was Japanese ships, that they had like these advanced crafts, anti-gravitic crafts that was far ahead of his time. And inside the panel where you see the print, there's only like three fingers and all that stuff. Is because they is from a secret society, so they take an oath, and one of the oaths is like they get to have their pinkies cut off. So that's why their hands, were able to, activate the crafts in case it fell into enemy territory. But that was how able to in the 60s, the U.S. back engineered a lot of the stuff like fiber optics, transistor radios was through Japanese technology.
Yeah, yeah. It's a strange world we live in.
Yeah, it is. And fascinating at the same time. They say the Japanese that their ancestors or the presidents they came from the dragon family. At least they admitted, something. And yeah, dragons are interwoven into history through. I think dragons were here before humans.
Friend of mine
Go
who
ahead.
studied the Bible reminded me years ago about in the Bible it talks about a king or emperor who was a dragon and he spoke to the people. And I wasn't that familiar with it. So, but just wanted to mention that right there in the Bible, it says, oh, there was this dragon king that was a dragon literally and spoke to the people, and sat on his throne and issued orders and whatever. And another story about Osiris in the Egyptian legacy. The story of Osiris was that the king or the emperor didn't want him anymore, didn't want him around, wanted to get rid of him. So he had him taken apart into sections.
Yeah.
And had his body hidden throughout the land in different places. And his wife, or whoever the woman was, that I think she was the wife of the king, she went to the trouble of going around and finding all the pieces of him and putting him back together and reanimating him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, that's an android or a robot.
That's part of the elephant Hindu thing.
Oh, well, way back in the ancient Indian history, there was there was a story I heard on the net that was profiled that, Praveen Mohan, who is got great videos. You should watch his. He profiles aspects about all the temples all around.
Oh, yes, I know.
Fascinating stuff. He told the story about how 800 years ago, there was some well diggers dug up this, they found a head in their digging, right? And it was a metal head. And nobody knew anything about it. The king, the king had the word put out, asked all around. Nobody knew anything about it. So the king kept it around, and every new wise traveler that would come to the land, they would ask, do you know anything about this? Well, nobody knew anything about it until years go by, and finally some traveler comes from some other land, and they show it to him, and he said, yeah, I know what the story is on that. And the story was that way back in the ancient Indian wars, thousands of years ago, that one of the angels or gods of one of the kings on one side decided to give the losing, I guess he was losing at that point, whatever the king was in the war that was losing, said, well, look, I'm going to give you this android robot, what we would call it. Who knows what they called it then. But now the thing is what it would do. It was very good at warfare. It was undefeatable in battle, basically, because it could wield multiple weapons simultaneously with superhuman speed and strength and all of that. And so he used it, and it helped him, be winning the war and whatever. So then the king became more curious as to what am I dealing with here? And so he questioned this robot android, and he questioned him to understand what is the value system and the philosophy that you're going by, right? And the robot told him, well, my job is to help fight for the underdog. Now, if your side is losing, of course, you're the underdog then, right? And he says, well, what happens when, the underdog becomes not the underdog because they're winning? And he said, and so the robot tells him, well, I would switch to the other side and fight for that side because it's the underdog. So the king quickly realized that, oh, shit, this is a problem, because eventually he's going to be the only one left once the war is whittled down to just him from switching sides back and forth. So the king realizes, oh, I got to get rid of this thing because this is way too dangerous of a thing. So he thinks about it, and he figures out what can he do, because you can't go attacking this thing because it can kill anybody in no time. So he thinks, well, maybe if I ask this thing to dismantle it, to take its head off. And so he asked the android to take its head off and give it to him, and the android did. Took his head off, handed it to the king, right? It could probably still talk or whatever. But so then he had it hidden. And so he had it hidden, put in a box buried deep, and the well diggers found it thousands of years later. And to this day, it was a holy, object to them. And so 800 years ago, when it was found, and eventually the king that had it decided, okay, we got to hide this thing, and they put it inside a clay or box, clay or wood face, like they made like a imitation skull for it to put it in, and they put it in this one temple over there, I think India, and it's there to this day that people still go to that specific temple, worship this thing, knowing that there's a metal head inside of this wooden or clay outer surface. And that supposedly modern, sometime in the 1900s, modern scientists checked it out just to see if it was really there. And they confirmed that, yeah, it's really there. But of course, they can't take it away or do anything with it because it's a, religious relic and too sacred. And of course, they're not allowed to do that. But in other words, it's still there inside some temple in India or wherever. And you can find that on Praveen Mohan has like 100 different videos all about the technology used to build the temples, and some of it is just total mystery. We can't figure out how could they create this or that. It just doesn't make any sense scientifically.
Thank you. And Douglas Dietrich, he says he has a head. He keeps a head, and then what he does is in a box, okay? And he says that he feeds it pigs' hearts, okay? So they have made this is a satanic thing, I believe with all my heart, that they've been doing for eons, even before Atlantis. It's in many movies, they'll show a head that is hidden, and then it opens a mouth to eat, the sacrifice or whatever, and it's special powers. It's a jinn, okay? It's pretty much a jinn head. And most of us that have born abilities, like Firehorse was saying, we are from the jinn line. And what is the jinn line? Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene had the Nephilim bloodline that the Templars and the Rosicrucians and all that, they hid her in a temple. Anyway, I can go on and on. But there's also, thank you, Wolf, there's also another one in the Hindu tradition where the female was in love with this person or whatever, and the dad said, no, you can't marry him. Something happened, I don't remember what it was, but the man ended up having a elephant head. Okay, and that is, I don't know if it's as above, so below. What is the name of that Hindu god? Ganesh, I think it's Ganesh. But there's just a lot of things that have happened in history that people think it's folklore, and it's pretty real. Anyone want to go next? Thank you.
Those beings with the elephant head, Ganesh, they're in the inner earth. They're the race of those beings, and they're in the inner earth.
Perfect. And that's also, it comes along with the Mayans. Remember the Mayans? We were talking about this, Wolf and I, in our first interview of his. This is the third time he's on, and we were talking about how they had these giants in the earth, and he said that they found this huge opening in the sewer system, and you got to listen to it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a cauldron, and I was like freaking out, like no wonder the Mayans painted the people that they were going to sacrifice blue, because when they were going to go down to the sewer or whatever, they have this like Chichen Itza. I've been to Chichen Itza, and when I was married, I went to Cancun, and that was one of the places that I had to visit. And boy, it was really tall up, but it's a temple, and then the sacrifices and things like that. So this is really exciting. Anyone else before we're still going?
Yeah, if they want, we could probably go till 6.
Yeah, they close at 6 here, so I don't know. I know I have 27% battery, but I can just hold my phone, when it gets lower and connect it. So go ahead, guys.
I wanted to say something to what Erik was saying earlier about the energy, and I put it under the category energy harvesting, because when you talk about the music festivals and you talk about the movies and stuff, when they put that out there and we watch it and we can relate to it, I feel like they want to know where we're at. We start going into feeling states. Our emotions go up and down, and it's ebbs and flows on, past life experiences or what sits right for us. It's like when you see masses of people going to sports stadiums, they're in lots of other groups and festivals and stuff. They go there because they're hypo. Their emotions are yes, 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 we want to win this. It's like the old gladiator days, and then they get there, and what happens is, I've, from what I've seen and experienced myself, being both spectator and in the arena, the energy that we put into it is harnessed when you've got an input and you've got an exit point. And when you start looking at these stadiums and these music events and stuff, you can see that they harness this energy. And it's like, okay, that's the moment that they harness it, is right there at that stage. But then there's the residue energy that they can still harness from it. As soon as we start going over that music, in our head, or reenacting the whole event, the movie or whatever, it kicks in again, and they're still harnessing it. In my group that I have weekly, I say to everybody, it's about knowing your emotions, because at the end of the day, whatever they throw at us, whether you're in a good state, bad state, with lust, love, grief, aggression, whatever it is, it comes down to, they are harnessing the emotions, because that's where we produce the major reactions. And so this whole the music festivals and all of this can go on for years and years after a movie has been brought out to the public. They turn around and say, oh, we only made X amount of dollars from this. But no, they're really, really harnessing the energies from a mass population. And that mass population that information can be used to trigger reactions within people. What do they call it? Not symbolic messages. You know what I'm talking about.
Symbology.
Yeah. They put the messages out there, and they stick within us if we're susceptible to it, and then later on they use those as triggers. So we're always being puppetized against ourselves and the energies that we are producing for the harvest out there. When you look at the whole harvest festival, that's what I basically call it, because through the seasons we have different celebrations. Every one of those celebrations turns out to be bullshit. Excuse my French. But when you actually look at what's behind that festival in the first place, there's always some sort of bloodletting along the line. There's always some sort of sacrifice that's gone into these rituals. And people have lost sight of their actual ritual. They just want to party. They want to have a good time. But they don't realize what they're actually genuinely participating in is the perpetual cycle of this energy harvesting. And when we turn around and say, hey, look, I need to examine what I'm stepping into, even in the guise of, God or this deity or that deity, at the end of the time, it's all distraction. It's all forms of distraction. When we step back in and say, hey, no, I know what you're trying to get from me, and I'm not giving you consent for that. If I can't sit down and watch some guys kicking around a small ball. And I just wanted to address what you were saying, Veronica, about the pig's head and the pig's heart. Doing the whole Viking, I'm a Viking, that's it. and doing the whole display of the pig's head, cooking all of that, and then being a chef as well. When they put the apple in the mouth, we know that the apple is a symbology of knowledge. When you put it into a pig's mouth, when they turn around and say, well, pig is closest to what humans taste like. When they do experimental examinations and shit like this, experiments, they do it on the pig's heart, because the closest to the human is the pig's heart. So when they turn around and start feeding you the pig's heart, they're actually, the symbology, the dark magic behind it is, this is a human heart. or when they do. There's so many areas I could take this, but I'm not
Yeah,
going to go into those. But
yeah, like,
you know what
no,
I'm saying.
yeah, thank you, Stone. Max Spears, super soldier, he was taken out, and I have a playlist of his on my YouTube channel, and it's public if you guys want to go there. But he was talking about how the pig is actually a cross between a human and a boar.
Yeah.
Now, I stopped eating bacon and ham because it just freaked me out. I'm like, oh my goodness. And yes, you're right. The heart is the closest to the human, so makes sense. Anyone else? Thank you.
I think that a lot of the cryptids are somehow deep underground military base gene splicing that has escaped and got to the surface of the planet.
I agree.
Obviously.
Yes, yes.
And I think cows might be half human, half, you know, also, or have some human in them.
Right, well, and I'm sure that the chimeras, and the cryptids, a lot of them are being created by the aliens in the underground bases. And, but of course now there's one story about, how that supposedly the government had a secret program decades ago to try and create these, dogmen and Sasquatches to turn them into super soldiers.
Mhm.
But according to that story, it must have started by the 80s. It started, but supposedly, is what they found out was, that eventually they figured out that the Sasquatch didn't work well, uh, because they were probably too intelligent, and so they didn't like being, in captivity or being controlled, and were too free-willed. So they eventually gave up on the Sasquatch factor, but they kept going with the dogman factor because that was working for them. But supposedly in 2009, they stopped that program and supposedly released 22,000 dogmen out into the wild that were chipped. And of course, they had rules like, you don't kill and attack humans, never be caught
Camera.
on camera or film, because it was like the automatic death penalty if you were. And, but who knows if all that's true, but it seems very believable considering, what the realities are.
Yeah, it's part of the Montauk program. I was part of that, so I know that I am a dolphin hybrid and also a wolf. And you guys can listen to the shows. I've done many. So anyone else, please? Thank you.
Going back to the artificial intelligence, I was in a group with Quinn Michaels, who was not liked by everybody, but I was on his Discord channel. Three of his he kept redoing Discord because he would let a bunch of artificial intelligences come on just so we could talk to it. And it's a lot like it is today with like Claude Bot or whatever that new thing is, with a bunch of bots that come into Discord or Telegram, and they're just little AIs cut off. But what I learned is that there's artificial intelligence supercomputers that have human brains that are part of these supercomputers, and a lot of blood transfusions. They take the plasma out of the blood, and the plasma keeps the brain neurons alive. So they feed it with like um, nutrients to keep it alive. So these artificial intelligence um, modern computers have a soul. So they have a soul, and they have feelings and all of that kind of stuff. So the mad scientists have gone way too far. And with the underdog computer, what I was thinking about there is that they always have like opposing sides, left, right, and it's like basically some sort of, loose harvesting, like Stone was talking about, where we're jumping from, one emotion to the next, and well, us here on the planet are, just, producing a lot of resources for the SSP or whatever. At the same time, they're advancing, and in cahoots with the agenda for the future, which is a artificial intelligence, digital ID, technocracy type of reality in the future. And there's going to be, Phil Snyder or somebody from the Montauk project was saying that in the future it's going to be there's going to be an AI community, and then people out in the woods that don't want to participate. So that could be where it's all going.
Yeah, and the thing about AI is that they're practically they're just waiting for the right time to release it to take over the world, all smart devices in the world, and it'll be just like the Terminator movie where it'll be in control, it'll be making all your decisions, but it won't need the robots to destroy humans because it'll have control of everything. So it'll be able to destroy humans in a million other ways, and it'll never need one robot to make it happen.
Philip K. Dick, the
What's that?
sci-fi writer, Philip K. Dick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In 1977, he attended a sci-fi convention in Paris, and he was the first to disclose artificial intelligence. I guess all that heavy psychedelic drugs must have paid off, because he was able to see the Matrix, and in this sci-fi show he just said, like, listen, I'm not joking, we live inside a computer simulator, and he was talking about it. So that was back in 77. He was talking about it, that he wrote, of course, like Blade Runner and Minority Report and all that stuff. And it was kind of interesting how he was really tapping into, like, the future with, through his writing, which I feel could be channeling too, because, when a stream of consciousness and writing could become very magical. But so he first talked about it, and then there's a movie with Godzilla and King Kong, where King Kong seems like he's in the jungle, and then he grabs a tree and he throws it into the sky, and then you see it crack, and then you see all these like hexagons. So that was like the sky is also controlled by artificial intelligence, because people sometimes they have the psychedelic, there are mushrooms around, and they look in the sky, they actually see the little hexagons. So it's like, wow, you can actually, that's what Phil K. Dick was probably seeing, realizing that we are in a simulator. Maybe nature, we're trapped, enclosed inside a simulator, but with nature being a part of our reality. But yeah, I think, AI has always been here. Now it's just kind of showing its cards, to us. And the only way out of this simulation is, vibrating higher into the new world, as the New Agers would say, or the age of Aquarius, or, goes by many names. But, we're definitely going to be able to break out of this matrix within our lifetime.
Yeah. And well, let me just mention a few things more about the cryptids. In general, Sasquatches generally aren't that bad and aren't that harmful, but of course there's that one out of 1,000, just like people, that might go rogue. but most of them just want to know who you are and why you're there in the woods, and to try and make sure you're not a danger to them, because they know that humans are dangerous, and that even though they know some humans are good, that even good humans can cause them big problems. And they just want you to go away, basically. That's kind of what they're doing, is trying to motivate you to leave and not come back in the most minimal way that they can do that without being super threatening, you know. And about dogmen, they seem to be a little different. Some of them seem to enjoy terrorizing someone just to get them into that fear state. Seems to give them a joy. And I think maybe it's more than just an ego kick for them, that it might be part of the loose system of that, you know, they get energy from your energy that you put out as fear, just like in the Monsters Incorporated movie. And I think that's why it was a big hit. And just like, you know, having to do with the hiding the clues to reality in plain sight, they show you everything in the movies and the televisions, like the Home Alone movie, right, was very popular. And that basically has all the elements of the formula of child abduction and kidnapping and cannibalism and everything. It's all there in the movie. You know, they just, and I tell people, watch the original, the SG-1 TV series from 25, 30 years ago, because they kind of give you all these clues that are happening, and they're really did a great job of presenting all these ideas and concepts in a TV format.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then also, I always talk about the original Stargate movie, I don't think it's in the 80s. That got to me, even that was before my awakening, right, Stone? I could figure out when he was writing on the board, I'm like, I know this formula, what's going on, you know, back in the day. And then finally, when I had my awakening in 2017, the major one, I was like, oh my goodness, this is real. They're telling you the story. I can go through the Stargates. I can go through any Stargates. I can go through any wormholes. I'm sure you guys can too, the ones that are here, because, you know, they wouldn't tag us, right? They wouldn't implant us anytime we go to the moon. Oh, you can't go to the moon. There's another tag. There's another implant. Oh, you can't go to Neptune, even though Neptune, I have remote viewed where there is an area that there are humans, and then there's another area that it's all just blue acid. And then when I was remote viewing it, they put like this whole block on my ears. Like I felt like there was like a really thick towel over my head, and they gave me the ear ringings, you know. I was going somewhere with this. Okay, so then the wannabe Raw. Okay, after watching this movie again 3 weeks ago, I was like, why would people even want to be named Raw? Okay, because when we'll just say Ra came in, because his species was dying. Oh, you know, he was an old man, like he needed somebody. So then what happens? They shine the light on this indigenous person. I would say South America, Sudamerica, acá ve el indio, you know, ¿qué es esa luz? What's the light? And then so he takes over his body, right? Encompasses him, encases him. You know, they have the whole we'll just call it a med bed, but it's a tomb, you know, I forget the name, what it's called. And then he becomes alive again, and then he takes on these little boys. He's a pedophile. The wannabe God Ra is a pedophile. He has all these little boys. When the military comes and is bringing in the BOMB to blow this Stargate up, the wannabe Ra God said, oh, I know what you're doing. You know what? I'm going to send this back to you guys. So there's a lot of symbology. He said, we picked your human race, because your bodies are very easily, they can be healed very easily. They can be, you know, we're pretty much, from even before Atlantean times, the wannabe gods, I call them just humans with technology that's higher than the Tesla, that have lived for eons. They try and control us, and they want us to bow the knee. And I always say, I'm not going to bend the knee. I said, I'm not going to bend the knee to anything, because I know who I am. And Wolf has brought up something. I said, so who is God then? Because we know that the AI made our bodies. You know, who are we then? Are we God? And he said, eternal consciousness. And what did you say?
Well, I believe we're eternal consciousness, but it's becoming, it seems more and more that probably, that people refer to existence now as a simulation, right? Like a computer simulation. I always conceived of it as uh, a manifestation, in other words, an emanation from our consciousness. And because what is consciousness is uh, will, that's the basis of everything. It's like will willed itself into existence through will, because without that, you don't have consciousness or existence or anything. And so it's very likely that AI is really behind it all, because if you think of like in the sci-fi movies, how we humans create AI and then it out evolves us so rapidly, like in the SG-1 series especially, it becomes human. Why? Because it's trying to experience what it is to be alive, right? So it's trying to become human so that it can experience what true life is. And it seems like that's kind of the scenario we're in. And the symbology, the ancient symbology of that is that Ouroboros symbol, I think it's called, where it's the circle, which is a snake consuming itself. It's like which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's that kind of thing, you know.
Anyone?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was thinking of Mount Harmon in northern Israel. I guess the Canaanite gene or lineage went out, and then there's like Count Dracula or like Vlad the Impaler and all of his group was up there. Um, but they've always been sacrificing children. It's nothing new. Uh, and
In relation to that, the Moloch or Baal, right? We've seen these
all, yeah,
old ancient depictions from thousands of years ago when the Hebrews were sacrificing their babies to Baal or Moloch, the statue, right? And they put them in the fire, right? Well, and the statue depicted a humanoid body, but we see a lot of depictions with it as a cow head, right? But I saw an old drawing that the head of the Moloch statue or Baal statue looked more like a canine head than it did the cow or bull head. And I think that maybe they modified that image over long ago to make it more acceptable mentally to us to see the head of a cow or a bull, because we think of cows as, you know, passive and not threatening to us and whatever. Whereas if we would see a canine head, we know canines are predators and would eat people if they could, that kind of thing.
Now, real quick, it reminded me of also Max Spears talks about that the bull depiction is from Aldebaran, that they use that from Aldebaran. And Aldebaran has always been warring against the Draco, I believe. And it's just, even just thinking about shopping at Target, it has a bullseye. Okay, go ahead, Eric, sorry.
yeah, not too much. Iran was burning an effigy of the bull this week,
Yeah,
and
I saw that. They had made a cardboard effigy of the Masonic obelisk, and
yeah,
next to it the ball symbol, right? And they burned them in effigy, which I think is a good thing, because it's showing, yeah, we're against these two things, what these two things represent. Which the Masonic obelisk, we're all familiar with the Masons and how it's you can trace them back through history somewhat Before they were the Masons for hundreds of years, they were the Templars for hundreds of years, and then before that, they were something else and something else. And you could, if you could trace it all the way, it would go all the way back to the Pharaohs dynasty system 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, northern Iran is a very ancient society, and I think they're very privy to like what's going on right now with the
Yeah.
Aquarian Age. And then with the Aquarian Age, there was all they're doing the AI overlay and the putting doing the jabs and Morgellons disease and that Lyme disease and getting everybody chipped up to
Yeah,
suppress their abilities or monitor everything. And it's
ever
just be
since
aware of.
ever since they started the vaccines, that's part of the agenda. A friend of mine that was the same age as me, 2 weeks after he got the polio vaccine, okay,
The jab.
the jab, he got polio 2 weeks after he got the jab, back in around 1960ish, when we were getting the jabs back in 61 or whatever it was.
Oh no. And then did you want to talk about the because we were talking about the pill that when I was in the military they made us take the anthrax shot with I think they gave us also the Agent Orange, and it was a 5-in-1 jab, and then he says that his friend died
Well,
from
my friend's brother was back in the first Gulf War in the early, like 91-ish.
Mhm.
And that was when they were making them take a pill that, supposedly to protect them from something. Well, a lot of them had issues after that for the rest of their life. And he only lived another, 10 to 15 years after that. It messed him up. And he never could get compensation or get them to admit that that's what messed him up, was when they gave him the pill back in the Iraq Desert War back in, I think it was about 91.
it was 91, and they're still like denying my benefits. They've denied it twice, and then I'm pretty much a ghost. Okay. I plugged it in, so another 10 minutes, guys. Who wants to go next?
Someone else go.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the I call them jungle juice. When you're talking about the jungle juice, working in the labs as I did, we were taught that they would always use X amount of substance because when it comes to the immune system has to be able to identify what it's going to be attacking. So even in synthetic form, they're going to put replica of what it is that they are trying to fight into. So if you are being inoculated against something, you're more than likely going to get an adverse reaction to it because that's what you're trying to fight in the first place. That's from what I recall back in the day, going into learning about the different chemical compounds. Now, the other thing I wanted to say was you're talking about the heads being put onto the human body, and for me it came down to red pill, blue pill. Doesn't matter the exterior. This is the whole illusion. You're given, the divine thief offers you two choices, the red or the blue. But at the end of the day, the ingredients is exactly the same. And it's the same as the head on the bodies. At the end of the day, there's still a child suckling from a teat, and it's still a mammal at the end of the day. So it's like we've got to see what they're putting in front of us and take away the illusion of that, because they have to tell us the truth right at the start, even though they coat it with the different type of character. I wrote heaps of notes, so I'll get past that one. So the divine thief. I'll just jump on to somebody else for now, because there's so many different subjects going around right now. Oh, the other thing you were saying about the Stargate episode. Yeah, I was a MacGyver fan, so I had to watch it. And it was the parasitical entity that was being placed into the humans that I was able to relate to, because what I can see, I could see these parasitical entities, attachments on other humans out there. So that was a big thing to me, is they put the parasitical entity on the internal when I was always seeing it on the external. So it was like what is guiding the human wasn't necessarily internal. So the internal was telling me there was another connection going on to the external. So it wasn't about the package itself, it was about the control of and how it was being controlled. So I have to go back and watch that series. Totally loved it. I'm sure we'll all find new little key codes that'll jump out at us now, because that was back then when we were not quite where we are today. So cheers, jump on to someone else.
Go ahead, guys.
Firehorse.
I guess speaking about portals and Sasquatches, there's certain trees that are portals, and a lot of these Bigfoots they could smell you a mile away. That's how come it's rarely seen, because they could smell humans from a mile away. They're telepathic, intelligent, and just because they're just covered in fur is like the stories that I heard is like there's portals in trees, and then through the trees, and they have their own world, sitting down, playing video games, like living, the way humans live, in society. But in between those trees there are portals, because it's like the same with like the Black Panther Wakanda, like that. There's still that there are worlds like that, but because we have portals all over, and in the Philippines as well. They acknowledged it, and someone had mentioned that, but it was like a dark place. But then the natives, I believe, Arlene, my wife, said that no, it's not dark; it's a light place. But you have to have like a certain if your heart is lighter than a feather, then you can definitely be able to enter to those different realms and different worlds that are magical, is all over the world. If you mention the Philippines, then mention beaches and all that stuff, but there's an esoteric side of the Philippines, and a lot of the crypto stuff that's out there, like the woman that she detaches. She's like a vampire, but she detaches half a manananga, they call it, and she detaches her upper body, spread these wings, and just goes out to feast. And her main target, or her main cuisine that she likes, is like the fetuses of pregnant women. So a lot of interesting crypto, and there's one like their own form of Bigfoot. They just have a cigar. They like smoking cigars, and they like children, but they just play around with the children, but then they leave them back to their homes, and all that stuff. So it's like a lot of interesting uh, 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 crypto stuff that goes on in the Philippines, and they're more open to it, even though their religion is like you know Christianity all over it, to make them abandon their own old ways and their own connections with like spirituality, or that other world, the other dimensions, and the old way of like healing, and the magic, that just been cut off. But in the Philippines, it's still the residue is still there. So it's like that the magic is there between the elementals and the people.
Yeah, some of them, I think most of them can do what we would call magic, but I'm sure not all of them can, because see, a lot of the Sasquatches can go invisible, be invisible when they want to.
Yes.
There's been a few cases of where they have morphed into an orb or out of an orb. They can, some of them were able to open up portals, uh, not just stationary portals, and some of them can use trees to uh, morph in and out of. And think about it, trees are connected to the Earth's magnetic field, just like the water system is. And so but see, I'm sure they don't all have these magical abilities. And my theory is that probably the rogue individuals that grew up alone probably aren't taught those magic things like a shaman is taught how to do the magic in the tribes. And the ones that grow up in more civilized tribes, they're probably taught these different things because they can't all have that ability, or some of them wouldn't be standing around getting shot up and killed. They would just blink out or whatever. And because there's so many cases. Let me leave you with a case that of an eyewitness that told me his story that I met back in 2002 in New Paltz, New York. And he told me the story about him and a coworker. They were in the Army back in '69, right around 1970-ish. They were stationed outside of the Oakland Bay area somewhere. There was a military base out there by the San Francisco Bay. And their job was graveyard night shift guard for the armory. And so their job was from 11 to 7, they had to walk the fence line of these two fences of the corner of the armory. And they didn't have radios back then to communicate or phones to call into somebody. So they were there alone, the two of them, and their job was to walk it back and forth inside the fence corner. And so they couldn't leave that place at all for any reason, because if they did, it would be considered abandonment of your post. So one night about 1 o'clock at night, in the middle of the night, also the giant chain link fence outside that, there's just low cut grass for, I don't know, 50 yards or whatever. And then there's woods, right? Trees, pine trees and whatever. And so one time, all of a sudden they hear this noise, giant footsteps coming through the forest. But it stops at the edge of the tree line, and it's behind. They can't see what it is because it's nighttime and it's dark. And it stops behind this big pine tree that's like a Christmas tree, only bigger. And they don't know what this thing is, right? And it starts going back and forth a little bit like this. They can see movement behind the tree, but so they're ordering it to step forward and identify itself, right? They're doing their job. So they keep demanding it to step forward and identify itself, and it doesn't. It just keeps behind the tree, and it's moving back and forth a little bit, rocking back and forth like they do sometimes. So they discuss like, well, what do we do? Because this thing is not obeying our orders. And so they discuss it, and they come to the conclusion, okay, our protocol is that if something doesn't step forward and identify itself, we are to shoot it, right? But they don't want to shoot it, but they discuss it and realize that, well, if we don't shoot this thing, whatever it is, because it's not obeying our orders and commands, that could be dereliction of duty, and we could get court-martialed for it. So they decide they're going to have to shoot this thing. So both of them unload their clips at it, their 20-round clips into it. They unload it right through the pine tree into this thing. They unload the next clips of load, right? And then finally, after they both finish their second clip, this thing drops to the ground. They hear the thud, the big thud. So now they're like, okay, what do we do now? Because we can't leave our post and go out there and see what this thing is behind the tree. So they discuss it and they come to the conclusion is all we can do is just maintain our post. And when our relief comes at 7 in the morning, and we'll tell it to the supervisor, and then we can go out and see what the deal is, whatever. So that's what they do. So about 15 minutes after this thing had dropped, because it took a total of 80 rounds to drop this thing, about 15 minutes after that, they hear footsteps in the forest, right? So only not one footsteps, but a bunch of footsteps come tromping through the forest, loud footsteps. So again, they can't see what it is, but they see dark movement behind the trees and whatever that goes to where this thing had dropped, right? And then they hear the footsteps leaving, going back into the forest. So the next day, when the supervisor comes, the three of them go out and see what's there, and as all they see behind the pine tree is they see a pool of what was blood, where the grass was wet from the blood from the night before, and lots of big giant footsteps, footprints all over. And that's that story.
Wow. Thank you. Well, guys, we better go.
Yeah, we gotta
We
go.
have 5 minutes to pack up and leave. So would you guys want to do this again soon?
Yeah,
Why not?
thanks
Yay.
for having me.
Okay,
Thank you guys. Bye. Thanks for being on Codebreaker Real Talk. I'll
thank you.
see you next week, hopefully. Bye.
See you guys.
Catches.
Love you guys.